3, 4. This is Fast Flag Facts with John. This is Fast Flag Facts with John. With the who, the what, the when, the where, the why. With John.
Hey everybody, welcome to Fast Flag Facts with John. I'm John, and this is the show where we talk about the who, what, when, where, and why of flags from around the world. That new theme song that you just heard is actually a song by my friend Chrissy composed that song. Thank you so much. That's really flattering. I thought we'd start with a simple flag for our first episode and sort of ease our way into this whole show. And so that's why I picked the flag of the United States of America. The story as it goes is that Betsy Ross designed the flag for George Washington, the first president of the USA, in 1776 during the American Revolutionary War. Simple story, right? Wrong. As I was researching this, I stumbled across a mystery so deep that I probably will not have time to cover the entire thing in this episode, but we're going to try our best. Before we dive in, since this is the very first full episode of the show, let's lay out some definitions and vocabulary that we're going to be using throughout the series when we discuss how flags are made and how to describe what is on them. So the first word we're going to talk about is field. The field of the flag, simply, is what's on the flag. It's the main part of the flag. So the field for the flag of the USA is 13 red and white horizontal stripes alternating back and forth. Next up, we have the canton. The canton of the flag is the part of the field that is in the upper left quadrant of the flag. It is often where something important is placed. The reason this is an important part of the flag is that, depending on how the wind is blowing, the canton may be the only part of the flag that is visible on a flagpole. The canton on the United States flag is a blue square with 50 white 5-pointed stars arranged in groupings of 9. Alright, so first up, let's talk about the who of the US flag. We actually don't know who designed the United States flag. Here's what we do know. This is the stuff that is actually factual. Betsy Ross was a real person. She was born on January 1st, 1752. She was a New Year's baby, and she spent pretty much her entire life living in the city of Philadelphia. She was the 8th child in a family with 17 children. Imagine that. She attended a state school, which was uncommon for women back in the 1700s, and after that she was apprenticed to an upholsterer named William Webster. This is also rather uncommon for women of the time. She learned a trade. She learned how to sew fabrics and garments. Another thing about Betsy Ross that was pretty unique among women at the time, she was actually married 3 times in her life. She spent most of her career sewing flags. She almost certainly did sew American flags at some point. That's all that we know for sure. The story of Betsy Ross inventing the first US flag seems to date back to actually her grandson. Her grandson wrote and presented a paper to a Philadelphia Historical Society around the time of America's 100th anniversary, well after Betsy Ross had died. It's also worth noting that most stories about Betsy Ross creating the flag involve her changing the star pattern from a 6-pointed star to a 5-pointed star. So even if these stories are true, most of those stories indicate that she augmented or modified the flag as opposed to inventing the entire thing. The fact of the matter is that the bulk of the design for the United States flag comes from a flag called the Grand Union flag. This flag was flown for the first time during the early days of the Revolutionary War. This flag has 13 stripes for the 13 colonies, but features a Union Jack, or the British flag, up in the canton. The makeup of the modern United States flag clearly predates when Betsy Ross was supposed to have invented it. Also, the flag that we currently use seems to be tied up in various militias that were running around at the time. For those of you who are not up to date on your American Revolutionary history, there were several militias or small, sort of informally organized armies that were running around and doing fighting before, during, and even after the American Revolution. One such militia, the Green Mountain Boys, used a flag that looked like this, that features a blue canton with white stars in it. Another militia, the Sons of Liberty, also had a flag with red and white stripes, the stripes that they called rebellious stripes. So in reality, the early days of the United States probably had lots of different flags flying around. There was not really much standardization until around June of 1777. Francis Hopkins was a bit of a polymath. He was a judge, an author, and a composer. He also designed the 1777 flag, which became the official flag for the brand new United States for 18 years. After that, ever since 1795, the flag has been redesigned to add more stars for each new state of the Union. Normally, this is where we'll talk about what goes on the flag, but we've already talked a little bit about that. But what does it represent? In the most basic sense, the 13 stripes represent the 13 original colonies set up by Britain during the colonial period, while the number of stars on the flag corresponds with the number of states. As we discussed earlier, the stripes are probably linked to this idea of rebelliousness. The stars, on the other hand, are of equal size and dispersion, indicating equality among the states and between the citizens of the United States. Stars have also been alluded to in Freemasonry, a topic which is well steeped in American foundational lore. If you want to know more about the Freemasons, check out this really cool documentary film called National Treasure. Now, the colors of the flags do not actually have an official significance. Unlike some countries, there's nothing in our Constitution or any of our official documents saying what the colors represent. However, Charles Thomson, one of America's founding fathers, once wrote that the white signifies purity and innocence, the red represents hardiness and valor, and the blue, vigilance, perseverance, and justice. Alright, the current 50-star version of the US flag was designed by a man named Robert G. Heft, originally from my home state of Michigan. The flag was adopted on July 4th of 1960. When Robert was 17 years old, he was a high school student, and as part of a civics assignment, he submitted his 50-star flag design. The teacher did not like the design and actually gave him a B- on the assignment. So he made a deal with his teacher. He said, if I submit this to US Congress and they adopt it as their official flag, can you change the grade? The teacher agreed to this, and he did submit it. He was one of about 1,500 people submitting new designs for a flag in 1960, and as history has it, he was selected out of the other 1,500 people. Robert Heft led a pretty normal life after that for a US citizen, passing away in 2009. The most notable thing about his life that I was able to find was that he was the mayor of a small town called Napoleon, Ohio for 28 years. Alright, so where can you find the US flag? Where can't you see it? Americans love their flag and they choose to fly it anywhere and everywhere at all times. In addition to official flags flying on poles at places like schools and courthouses, you can see it on posters, mugs, t-shirts, hats, tattoos, pins, badges, beach towels, ducks, underwear, and many, many more places. Now, where in the world will you see the US flag? Aside from the United States itself, you can find it in all of its overseas territories, including places like Guam and Puerto Rico. You can also find it on military bases. There are also communities of 50,000 or more American expats living in places as diverse as Mexico, India, Germany, the Philippines, Israel, the UK, Costa Rica, South Korea, France, China, Brazil, Australia, Japan, Pakistan, and Italy. You will also see the flag depicted on a lot of pop culture. For better or worse, pop culture is one of the United States' biggest exports, and with that comes a lot of American flags. So finally, why does it matter? The United States is a major player on the world stage, and has been for almost 100 years now. To know its flag is to know its people. The principles of equality, hardiness, valor, perseverance, justice, and even rebelliousness have all been enshrined in them and their flag since the very beginning. While questions can be asked about whether America has lost its way in recent years, or if it has ever actually upheld those ideals at all, it is important to recognize that they are at the core of the American self-conception. So in conclusion, who? Probably not Betsy Ross, but maybe. What? Stars and stripes representing 13 colonies and 50 states. When? July 4th, 1960. Where? Pretty much all over the world. And why? Because America, baby. Stay tuned. Next up is Mexico City.